So today I'm going to be talking about the Great Awakening, also known as the Evangelical Awakening, that occurred in both the States and in Great Britain. I think that this movement is really pivotal to just how Christianity as a whole developed, and specifically Baptist history. I think it has a lot to do with how Baptists still preach today, and so I'm really just fascinated by the Great Awakening and a lot of people that came out of that. So the Great Awakening saw two big movements. There was the First Great Awakening and there was the Second Great Awakening. The First Great Awakening also coexisted with the evangelical revival that was occurring in Britain. So both having these roots in the Moravian movement, that's where they both originated from. And the biggest message from this whole movement was that you were justified by faith. That was kind of the word that was being announced to people at this time. So, and the Protestants in particular, which apply to the people of Baptist history, or Baptists, I guess, they emphasized new birth, so being born again as a believer, and they need to just be active in sharing the gospel. So the Great Commission, go therefore and make disciples, that was kind of a big pivotal thing for the First Great Awakening. It focused a lot on the people already inside of the church and getting them equipped, and them having a better understanding of who they are, so that therefore they could go out. So one of my favorite people who kind of existed during this movement is a man named George Whitefield. I have a picture of him. This is good old George. George was an incredible man. He became a Christian within the Great Awakening movement, so he actually came to faith during this movement, and then 2 years later after that he was sent out. He became a preacher. He became one of the most famous preachers, I would say, at this time, and he actually was a Calvinistic Methodist from Oxford University, so that's just a little history on him. So just something else to say about George Whitefield is that he was a fascinating man. He immediately began, like I said, to preach the word of God after his conversion with vigor and enthusiasm, which is a lot of what this movement was rooted in. Something that our textbook that I have, Baptist history, doesn't really touch on is that actually the churches of England would not have Whitefield in their church because they thought that he was just too enthusiastic and he was too vigorous, and so they actually did not allow him to preach in their pulpits anymore. So that's when he came to America, and I have a map here showing you a few things. This is America, and as you can see, these are all the major cities that kind of were affected by this movement. You'll see there were things like camp meetings and the Kentucky Revival, and these are just the people who are really in America impacted by them. So that's the encyclopedia that I use as my alternate source, kind of addressed that Whitefield's moving to America was not very peaceful. It was very much you have too much enthusiasm, please go somewhere else, to, I guess, summarize it. So, he was too unconventional, but I think that's what made him admirable in a sense, and that's what influences our style of preaching now. Here's a picture of him preaching. In our textbook, it talks about how he just had such an art for speaking that even he could say, quote, the word Mesopotamia, and people would just swoon, because they were just so convicted by the way he presented the word. And I think that is something that big that we got out of the awakening, and a lot of that can be contributed to George Whitefield. And that's all I have for you, except for also George Whitefield, fun fact, preached over 18,000 sermons. That is a lot. Okay, thanks, Hatchett.